सहनाववतु सहनौ भुनक्तु सह वीर्यङ्करवावहै तेजस्विनावधीतमस्तु मा विद्विषावहै। ओम शांति शांति शांति। This webinar is a part of our plan to cover a number of major Upanishads in 2 or 3 webinars each, one of them being devoted to Moksha Shastra, the science of liberation, and the second and probably the third being devoted to Dharma Shastra or Niti Shastra, or that vast field of personality integration, self-development, or our march towards Chitta Shuddhi, purity of mind. This webinar now is about Moksha Shastra in Taittiriya Upanishad. Taittiriya Upanishad is a major Upanishad of the 10 on which Adi Shankara wrote his commentaries. This Taittiriya Shruti has a very prominent place. There again, those who are very keen to understand Advaita Vedanta would do well to study the second Valli along with Adi Shankara's commentaries, and I am not exaggerating. The second Brahmananda Valli along with Shankara Bhashya is very rich food for thought. For in the Vedanta, I must say, it is that which takes us above thought. Thought is the plane on which all of us as thinking creatures generally live. And Vedanta is never tired of saying to us, our true nature is not thought, not what thought presents us to be. Our true nature is the witnessing consciousness. It is thus that this Brahmananda Valli, which means Valli, the chapter that goes into Ananda, the bliss of the ultimate truth, Brahman. Brahman, as you know, also means the infinite, the endless, the limitless. Our happiness generally is limited. Happiness comes and goes. How are we to attain that happiness which has no beginning, no end, which is genuine, which is without a cause? The key to this great wisdom can be found in Brahmananda Valli. That is how the Valli begins with a terrific statement. Brahmavida apnoti param. One who knows Brahman attains the supreme. This statement itself can send us to heights of contemplation. What is Brahman? What it is to know Brahman? And in what sense is it said that we attain the supreme? What is that supreme? Needless to say, the supreme is moksha. Atyantika dukkha nivritti, ending of sorrow forever, and paramananda prapti, attainment of supreme happiness. That is what every one of us is seeking. But alas, this matter seems to slip through our fingers. We have everything else with us, but not Brahma Jnana. Right in the beginning, following this great statement, Brahma vidapnoti param, this Upanishad has, to its credit, a very wonderful pointer to the nature of Brahma. Call it Brahma or Brahman, they are one same. Satyam Jnanam Anantam Brahma. Satyam, that which never changes its nature. Our body changes, our mind changes, our senses change, our positions change, our relationships change. Everything seems to change, but the Vedanta wakes us up to the truth that there is something yad vishaya buddhihi na vyabhicharati. That is no other than the pure I am. Nobody needs a proof for one's own existence. You may go into a room and wonder whether your particular red shirt is in that room or not. But do you ever wonder, having gone to a dark room or a well-lit room or whatever, do you ever wonder, oh, am I here in this room? Your own existence needs no proof. And that sense of I am has been with you in early childhood, in youth, in middle age, in old age, and so on. That is Satyam. And Adi Shankara, in his commentary, makes this point very clear that Satyam is not existence as this or as that, not existence as a table, as wood, or as wood dust. No. Existence is without any name or form. And then there can be what is called qualified existence. Existence as a table. A country exists in a certain form. Then it may get divided or it may merge into another country. So existing as this or that is a different matter. But existence itself, which sounds very abstract to us, no doubt, however, it is not really so abstract. Actually, you and I have got so attached to names and forms that an existence without name and form seems to be daunting, and we first get scared. Oh my, this nirguna, nirakara tattva is scary. Is it so? If you really contemplate on the Upanishadic teachings, you will find that in this nameless, formless, qualityless reality, you have absolute bliss and absolute freedom from fear. The second word used, which is again a pointer, which is a lakshana of that Brahma, is Jnanam. Here also, don't mix it with knowledge of something, knowledge of Taj Mahal, knowledge of French, knowledge of the Atlantic Ocean, knowledge of some small or big object. Leave aside that aspect of X or Y. Knowledge or awareness in its purest form, based on which all knowledge, qualified knowledge, takes place. Thus, contemplation upon these philosophical truths facilitates letting go of our obsession with our present personality. And mind you, when we let go of our obsession with our personality, it's not at all a case of our becoming disinterested, losing enthusiasm, losing any passion for life, etc. That's a great misunderstanding. On the contrary, when we let go of our obsession and excessive attachment to this personality, we get so unburdened, and that is a state of freedom. Moksha is that when you are alive as ever before, but you have no attachment to this personality. If this personality were to drop dead in an hour, you are ready for it. If the personality were to stay for another few decades, you are ready for it also. So this is great freedom, unconditional freedom. You won't anymore say, I'll be happy if such and such thing is with me, such and such person is with me, such and such object is with me. There is no if or but. You are free, you are happy unconditionally. Therefore, this is Moksha Shastra. Satyam, Jnanam, Anantam, limitless. Anta means a boundary. Limitless, boundaryless. How wonderful. Thus, Taittiriya Upanishad, Brahmananda Valli begins with a bang and in 9 anuvakas, running into quite a lot of mantras, this Brahmananda Valli of Taittiriya Upanishad touches upon several topics, even things like how creation came into being. But all those topics are to pave the way to an insight into that which is neither created, which nor creates. Neither created nor creating is that truth. But all this talk of creating in some sequence, space, air, fire, water, earth, and so on, is to prepare the ground. That is what we call in the Vedanta Prakriya methodology as Adhyaropa, to be negated eventually, Apavada. All of you know the 10th man's story. 10 men cross a river and they were dull-witted. After crossing the river, every one of them counts the other 9, leaving out himself, and gets so scared. Oops, there are only 9. In this humorous story, we have wonderful insights into how Vedanta works. We are paying attention to our personality, our bank balance, what we were at one time and what we are today. Maybe not as wonderful as before, or maybe wonderful unlike before. Doesn't matter. Our attention is all on what happens to this personality and not to the witnessing consciousness that is aware of the personality. You see, in the story of the 10th man, when they are all at loss, wondering where the 10th man disappeared, a well-wisher comes along, probably on a horseback, makes all of them stand in a row and says to every one of them, say 1, say 2, and so on, loudly. That saying loudly has its own significance in the illustration that we will now explain. When the first man loudly says 1, or the other 9 here, the second man says loudly 2. Since they know each other for a long time, they recognize everybody's voice. They know that this person who said 2 is not the person who said 1. Likewise, 3, 4, and it comes to 8, and it comes to 9. Now, the visitor looks at the 10th man, and the 10th man, as it is his turn, says 10. But even as he is about to begin saying 10, he clearly notices that there were 9 different voices. I was none of them. And even when 9 got over, I remain. I am distinct from those 9. In the 10th man story, it is 9 people being dismissed before the 10th man realizes, I am the 10th man who was mistaken to have died. I am that. I am that is a Mahavakya in Vedanta. Aham Brahmasmi. All along we have been knocking at wrong doors. We stand before the mirror and ask ourselves a wrong question. Here I am. I have studied Vedanta for 50 years. How do I look? What the mirror shows is not your true I at all. Don't look for Brahma Varchas, some radiance of a Brahmajnani. Don't look for a halo around your head. Don't look for 2 horns upon your head. Don't look for any other silly sign of freedom in the image of yours in the mirror. We must know, I am. It is not getting again and again more attached to the body. On the contrary, it is letting go of the idea, I am this body. In the story, there are 9 men who are let go of before the 10th man understands he is what was or who was desired, the sought after. I am the seeker. I seek to know where the 10th man is. And wow, I am the sought. The 10th man that is sought is me. So the seeker discovers that he himself is the sought. Likewise, when we go through the disciplines of the Vedanta study, when through a competent teacher we study the prakriya, the way of adhyaropa and apavada, we shall see that this physical body, called in the Taittiriya Upanishad Annamaya Atma, we have an expression, Sava Esha Purushaha Annarasamayaha. This being is made of food. This is the head of this being. This is the trunk. This is the feet. This is the right side. That is the left side. There are mantras to that effect. And for a while, the teacher helps the student ponder this physical existence. Those of you who have studied Prakarana Granthas, like Viveka Chudamani or Atma Bodha, etc., know that there is a word used, kosha, pancha koshaha, annamaya kosha, pranamaya kosha, manomaya kosha, vijnanamaya kosha, anandamaya kosha. Kosha is a sheath, like a sword is placed in its sheath. The truth of our existence, as though, not really, as though is placed or kept in these 5 sheaths. And for that idea, that Vedanta concept of 5 sheaths, the basis is Taittiriya Upanishad, Brahmananda Valli. Now, in this Upanishad, again and again, the Rishi leads the student further in the exploration. There is a key sentence, Anyontara Atma Pranamayaha. Anyaha means, all right, we have discussed the physical existence of ours, and for a while we thought that is Atma, that is me. The word Kosha is not mentioned in the Taittiriya Shruti. Kosha is a contribution of Prakarana Granthas, which is welcome. But the Upanishad proper uses the expression Atma. Atma is I. Friends, do not imagine that who am I did not exist before Sri Ramana Maharshi highlighted it. He never said he had invented it. On the contrary, he regularly, steadfastly maintained that this is the truth declared by the Upanishads. Who am I? When we inquire, who am I? One by one, our idea of who I am drops away. The idea of who I am is Atma at a given moment. One Atma, which is one idea of who we are, is let go of, and a better one, Anyaha Antaraha. Go inward. Don't go from a mistake to a bigger mistake. In life, sometimes we err so much. We have committed a blunder and then agitated over that, we go and commit a bigger blunder. From the frying pan, we fall into fire. That is not to be done. In Atma Vichara, once we see the limitations, in fact, error of a particular stand that we have taken, we let go of that and discover a newer stand, a newer outlook, which for a while appears very impressive. What is that? Pranamaya. The whole industry in the world of self-development exploits Pranamaya Atma. All kinds of techniques and practices and spiritual exercises, all kinds of workshops, all kinds of 7-day program, 5-day program, weekend crash course, and so on and so forth, are teaching people how to find greater energy in themselves through physical exercise, through breathing exercise, through poetry, through literature, and of course, through making money, through enjoyments and so on, because through them also, a man or a lady briefly finds on top of the world. Everybody wants more prana. As you know, prana also means life, being alive. When we lose money, we sometimes say, oh, I am dead. I lost all my savings. I am dead. The person is not dead, but the person equates having money with being alive. Therefore, Taittiriya Upanishad, in its own way, praises Pranamaya Atma, but then lovingly guides the seeker a little more inside. Antaraha, inside. Anyaha, this is distinct. Pranamaya Atma is distinct from Annamaya. And Manomaya is distinct again, and inner, more subtle, more pervasive than the previous two Atmas. Anyontara Atma Manomayaha Tenaisha Purnaha. By the inner, the outer is filled. As you fill air into a balloon, the balloon is filled by air. Which is outside, which is inside. The balloon is outside, the air is inside. Likewise, Pranamaya and Annamaya are outside. This new discovery, Manomaya, is inside, and in that sense, it pervades, it fills. Every bit of Pranamaya and Annamaya are filled with, because this is inside. Whatever is inner, more subtle, more pervasive, fills the outer, the gross one, the less pervasive one. Thus, friends, we have Manomaya Atma. The serious aspect of this is if you and I actually have loving thoughts, noble sentiments, and healthy outlooks, physical exercises and breathing exercises, etc., are less important. Our own Pujya Swami Chinmayanand never did yoga or pranayama. And all of us know his famous or infamous statement, I don't want to do yoga. I don't believe in bending my body. I believe in straightening my mind. He was operating right away on the Manomaya Atma of everybody, taking people from there to Vijnanamaya, to Anandamaya, and then to the pure self. He did not waste his energy on working on Annamaya or Pranamaya. He respected people. If there are people who, teachers who help mankind stay fit physically, stay fit in terms of the gross energy, he said, good, they are doing good work, but there are enough of them in this world. He said, my ashram will begin with thoughts and ideas and showing their limitations, take the students to that which is beyond thought, beyond world. It is this Brahmananda Valli only which has the statement coming twice with a slight difference. Yato vacho nivartante aprapya manasa saha anandam brahmano vidvan na bibheti kadachaneti. For second time, na bibheti kutaschaneti. If one knows the truth, which is not only above body and breath, which are very popular in this world, the self-help industry is heavily into body and breath. But the Upanishad says there is a certain truth which is not only above body and breath, but above even manaha. Vacho nivartante manasasaha. It is above all descriptions. Scholars of Vedanta may memorize mantras and shlokas and lecture on them. They may talk a lot, but hold on. Real Vedanta is not about those eloquent words or impressive speech. Vachaha nivartante manasasaha. Both speech and mind return, failing to touch that truth. What wonderful poetry blended with beautiful truth of spiritual life. Thus, the Taittiriya Upanishad, talking about 5 selves, self, the gross self, a bit subtler self, and the third one, and the fourth one, and the fifth one, where neither manaha nor buddhihi, nor of course the indriyas, karmendriyas, jnanendriyas, pranas, etc. have any role to play. There is a certain happiness, and in profound understanding of the Vedanta, we find in a sense the truth is beyond the 5, but in another sense the truth is in the 5th, in the 4th also, in the 3rd also, in the 2nd also, in the 1st also. There is nothing in the universe, anywhere outside or inside, where the truth is not. The entire snake, the misapprehended snake, is pervaded by the rope in every bit of it. Touch the head of the snake, touch the tail of the snake, touch the middle of the snake. You are actually touching the rope which you mistook to be a snake. Likewise, while as a prakriya, as a thought development, as a method, it is all right to talk about inner and inner, even inner. But all these outer and inner are within avidya bhumi. It is within adhyaropa. When the quantum leap takes place in understanding, one doesn't jump, one doesn't leap physically, nor mentally. But in one's understanding, there is a leap. A leap from time to the timeless, space to the spaceless, from causation to the causationless, from the known to the apparently unknown, which really was ever known. Thus, if you wish to study Moksha Shastra in fine detail, study Taittiriya Upanishad's coverage of the Pancha Atmaha. Annamaya Atma, Pranamaya Atma, Manomaya Atma, Vijnanamaya Atma, Anandamaya Atma cha. And then as the one truth in all five of them, Shuddha Atma, Asansari Atma. And it is in this Upanishad, I will touch upon two more aspects and then pause. We have actually a pointer to how we may put an end to all fear, all complexes, all sense of insecurity, all sense of, oh, I am not there yet. Oh, I lag behind. In modern times, you have a number of new words for the malady of human life. Somebody may say, I don't have fear, I don't have desire, I don't have anger, I don't have jealousy, I only have stress. But examine the stress. Stress consists of fear and desire, anger and jealousy, and above all, a certain self-judgment. The moment you judge yourself to be not up to a certain task, and you have a sincere desire, a earnest desire to do that task, but your mind says, I don't think I can do it. I don't think I can catch up. I don't think I can measure up. I don't think I will be able to pull along. There are so many slang colloquial expressions. I won't be able to pull together. I'm giving up. Oh, I'm giving up. Then a guru comes and says, again using a colloquial expression, slang language, don't give up like that. Hang in there. No, hang in. This hang in is a slang expression, but it is in a serious sense an appeal for nishtha. Stay in the truth that Vedanta teaches you. If you have missed sight of it, quickly get back. Get back the right vision and then stay in that vision. That is called hanging in. Hang in there and you will find all your stress, all your anxiety will go away. The one who has stress will be discovered to be an illusion. Life goes on. And this intruder, this impersonator called ego has so much noise about it. This sense of, where am I now? Looks like all my Vedanta is also going waste. Vedanta cannot go a waste, but your thought this morning or this evening is playing another mischief, maybe a good old mischief. Especially if you have heard all those old Bollywood songs, then you are likely to be very miserable. Saya hi apne saath tha, saya hi apne saath hai. Example. In one of those old songs, the Bollywood, our generation grew up with these sad songs. Only shadow was with me, no one else gave me company. And today, it is even more obvious than ever before. Nobody is with me. If there is anybody with me, that is my shadow. Right? So there are many examples in all languages of all these sad lines. Vedanta dismisses them. Stop singing those old lines. You were always free. You are free. And you are going to be free. Your nature is free. How? You say, how is that possible? Therefore, there is a powerful mantra here. A lot of powerful mantras in this Brahmananda Valli. The mantra says in the 7th Anuvaka, really speaking, if your true nature were not bliss, you would not have stayed even one more breath. Raso vai saha rasam heva ayam labdhva anandi bhavati. And you eat ice cream and feel happy. The truth of the matter is that happiness came from the pure self. The ice cream was only an instrumental. Kohi eva anyat, kaha pranyat. Who would have breathed? Who would have breathed in? Who would have breathed out? If you and I are still living in hope, all of you who attended many webinars and maybe felt tired and exhausted, again come for this webinar. I am surprised. That means that you still have hope. And Taittiriya Upanishad says, no wonder you have hope. To have hope is a sign that you actually are that pure self. If you are not the pure self, you would not have lived even one more instant. Ko hevanyat kapranyat yadesha akasha anando nasyat. The truth is, even those who commit suicide are the same indestructible Brahman, but alas, their mind went for a terrible tailspin. Their judgments got so wrong. Their calculations or their assessment, their estimation went so topsy-turvy that they took poison or hanged themselves, all that. They too are Brahman, Vedanta says. Now the mantra which especially I want to highlight is how this Upanishad says we overcome fear. There is an expression, Abhayam Pratishtham Vindate. We shall establish ourselves in unshakable fearlessness. When do we do that? Yada hi evaisha etasmin adrishye anatme anirukte anilayane abhayam pratishtham vindate atasaha abhayam gato bhavati. So nothing new really, but expressed in yet another powerful way. Our truth is not this personality who wins here but loses there, who makes money here but loses money there, who is praised here or insulted there. All that goes on, the tamasha goes on. The truth of our being is adrishya, it's never seen. You are the seer, anatmya. It is without any other support. It is the support of everything. Anirukta, indescribable. Anilayana, it has no some other thing on which it has to lean, or it doesn't need a house. It is by itself. Swayam Jyoti, Swayam Siddha, Swatas Siddha, Achala, Abhaya. These are the words, and this Brahmananda Valli concludes with a terrific analysis of happiness. If there were to be a robust, healthy person, not just fit and fine, but erudite, has studied the Vedas, therefore has noble thoughts, lofty thoughts. In addition, he also is desireless. So, if there is somebody, yuva syat sadhu, yuva adhyayaka, he is a student of the Vedas, he is sadhu, no addictions, no bad habits, which is all a great wealth, when we have no bad habits, no addictions. Please don't imagine drinking and smoking only are addictions. If anybody is tardy, if anybody doesn't, control his speech or sleep, if anybody is not clean in his habits, or even keeping the room or keeping his house, etc., all that is addiction only. One has bad habits. One is not punctual. One is so slow in everything. That is an addiction. Sometimes that kind of delaying everything is an addiction worse than smoking or drinking. So do not be overly, opinionated about only drinks and smoke and drugs. Not that we are asking you to go for them. They are, of course, problems. But if somebody is without drink, without smoke, without drugs, etc., even if somebody gets up early and so on, if that person is insensitive to others' sorrow, that is also an addiction, being in his own world. So, here is a person, sadhu, and ashishtaha, full of positive outlooks. Balishtaha, strong, and say the whole earth is his. That means no shortage of wealth. That is called one manusha ananda. And it is said, when somebody has Vedantic insight and is free of desire, the happiness of the second person already includes the happiness of the young man whom we described. You and I would envy that young man or young lady. How happy she should be, for no bad habits and such good health, always cheerful, bubbling, and always, with some nice outlooks. I wish I was like that lady, like that man. But that happiness which we would envy is already a subset of someone who has Vedantic understanding and desirelessness. Shrotriyasya cha akamahatasya. And then 100 times is another Gandharva Ananda, another 100 times is Deva Gandharva, and so on. Finally, the bliss of Brahma is said to be more than, 100 means 1 followed by 2 zeros. Instead, you put 1 followed by 22 zeros. More than, it's a huge number. There's nothing sacrosanct about 22 or 23 or 24 zeros. But the bliss of Brahmajnana is incomparable with anything that you may get in life on this earth. Therefore, let it not look very complicated. The teaching of Moksha Shastra is Neti Neti. Watch, notice carefully the movement of your ego. Let go of ego. The ego expresses on various levels in various ways. Live a conscientious life. Live a watchful life. Don't live mechanically. Let Vedanta study help you to identify even subtle traces of egoism. As I always say, egoism may mean feeling superior or feeling inferior. Both of them are ego. Brahma is neither superior to anyone nor inferior to anyone. Because Brahma is one without a second. Where is the second compared with which Brahma could be higher or lower? Brahma is blissful, alert silence. And contemplation upon these lines of Brahmanandavalli can catapult us to great, beautiful reflection that brings about Atmanishta. Om Namah Paramarashibhyo Namah Paramarashibhyaha. I welcome 2 or 3 questions at this point.
Harivom Swamiji, I'm Subramaniam.
Yes. Yes, you are the, generally you are the opening batsman. You are back at the crease.
I have one fundamental question, when you talked about like Swami Chinmayanji used to say, straightening myself, and versus yoga and pranayama. So some of the practices we do, I want your opinion, one better than the other. For example, straighten the mind with a mantra, either the chanting silently inside you or likita mantra, which one better than the other. Second, one time you mentioned alternative breathing to stabilize the, you quoted one of the American, one. Does it have a role?
Yes.
And lastly, is it better to use some noble thought like, a inspirational passage versus breath, like these three practices, which you think, just I want your opinion, which is better, or you can combine, or what?
All of them are good, and we are fortunate that we have been exposed to several of these spiritual practices. But as I concluded my talk, ultimately, we have to notice very carefully whether we got attached to something where its use is already outdated. Let's say there was a time when somebody was repeating multiplication tables, and one day he realizes, I don't have to repeat these multiplication tables. So he then lets go. He stops it. Likewise, the solution to all the three questions of yours is in one point. If you spend time here and there and re-examine what you have been doing, there will be a voice from within you that I don't have to do this anymore, for I have now found a higher spiritual practice. So they are all valid, but the higher one, how do we know what is higher? Whatever uses less of a support is higher. Loud chanting is using that loudness, high volume as a support. Soft chanting is without it. Likita Japa uses the hand movement as a support. And when you stop writing but do mentally, that is superior. Likewise, if you go further, contemplation upon the truth of the teachings is way higher than even any passage, because passage is more concrete. What is more concrete is always lower. What is less concrete, which means subtle, which means, no particular form, that is always like sugar. Sugar granules are regarded in an analogy subtler than sugar cubes. So you take away name, take away form, take away structures, take away rigid boundaries, that spiritual practice is higher. But don't hurry up with anything. If only in a natural way you feel like moving higher, letting go of a support, then moreover, if you feel confident about it, you must let go of practices where some support is taken. So this is the golden rule. Less the support, higher is the. Swami Chinmayananji was such a wonderful, intellectual and sharp and very witty person. For him, this yoga and pranayama were not necessary. It is not the case with most of us. Most of us have to do yoga and pranayama, for our intellect tends to get dull. His intellect was so sharp 24 by 7 almost. He didn't have to. So somehow it is his pura sanskara. Therefore, he said, I don't care. Very good. That is up to him. If we too don't really depend on any yoga or pranayama and our mind remains loving, our intellect remains sharp all the time, then where is the need? We just have to eat moderately and do a little bit of walking. That's enough.
Hello, sir. Thank you very much.
Yeah. Welcome. Good question. Very practical question that was. Any last question for this Eastern Hemisphere?
Krishnanji would like to speak. Please unmute your mic.
Yes. Is that Krishnan from Palo Alto? Yes, feel free to talk.
Please unmute your mic.
No question, Swamiji. Everything was nice.
Wonderful. So nice. So many of you could join at this webinar. So this was just an attempt to show you glimpses of the Moksha Shastra. Otherwise, every statement that we quoted has a lot of subtleties, and it's not easy.
But today you cleared a lot of doubts for me, because everything we had discussed before and all created some doubts, but today's lecture cleared a lot of doubts for me. Thank you.
I'm glad to hear that. That is our attempt to make matters a bit more understandable. And once you get that confidence, hey, this makes sense, then you will get down to the so-called subtleties and sort them out. But at the outset itself, if you or anybody feels, oh, this is so abstract, or this seems to be self-contradictory, then where will one go to, the deeper and detailed study? The detailed study is going to be a feast, I tell you. Some of our talks are more what they call pep talks. These arouse interest and give to people a certain confidence about this Vedanta. But detailed study, which may not have much, pomp or much, fanfare about it. It may be serious, quiet study where 2 of you or 3 of you may be doing. That actually delivers more. So these are all to promote that kind of higher study. That higher study, I don't mean getting lost in too much of academics. One has to very carefully walk the tightrope, neither getting lost with academics, nor remaining in the popular expressions only, to come upon precision without, going into simply linguistic exercises or too much unwarranted logic, etc. That's an art. All right. If there is a last question, someone may ask. Otherwise, we shall call it a day.
Guru Prasad, can I have a question?
Okay, please ask.
These sensory pleasures, experienced by each sense organs, they appear to be different. Seeing, touching, smelling, all the pleasures, they appear to be different. But are they different, or they derived from the same Brahmananda? Why are they looking different if it is derived from the same Brahman? Brahman.
Yeah. So that is true. It's the same happiness, but it looks different. Probably just as is the same sugar, but you and I will get bored if every day jalebi is served. We say, isn't there some laddu? Isn't there some rasamalai? Or isn't there some payasam, some kheer? So we want, variety. And, in the same analogy, the happiness of eating a sweet, basic thing is the same, sugar. But some of them may have elaichi, some of them may have something else which brings a unique perfume or fragrance also to the eatable, and so on. So if you steer through those differences, deep down, all the sweets of the world are basically sugar. We want variety, and the compassionate Lord has created variety of enjoyments by giving to us the 5 senses, which generate that variety. The deeper you go, you will find happiness is one only. But on different levels, vertically and horizontally, the happiness of reading, the happiness of music, the happiness of friendship, the happiness of many other good associations in life they seem to be different. And lastly, I may say that in the analysis of self-knowledge, it is said that happiness is when the separate self subsides. The ego or the separate self was up and agitated, and when it gets one of these pleasures, gross or subtle, that ego which had risen or which had raised its head quietens down. Absence of ego, absence of the separate self is bliss. That's how Ramana Maharshi would say, Adrashta loka niraham pratitihi. Aham means the self. Niraham, no self, no ego. That is Akhileshta. Everyone desires that only. For some people, when they listen to Carnatic music, all their worries go away. The person who is worrying also, their thought created, I am a loser, I have been unfortunate. That's thought created. That just subsides as she listens to music. For someone else, it is rather study. So you study. For scholars like us, when we study the Vedanta, when we get to understand some grammar over there, a moment ago, there was a certain dissatisfaction. Oh my, I'm not reaching anywhere. Oh, who is that I? That I just disappears when we come upon a new discovery. Oh, this is this samasa. Oh, that is that sandhi. And this is this logic of Adi Shankara here. Now I understand. More than the logic or the grammar, the fact that we understood something makes the crying baby quiet. The crying baby is the ahankara. So, niraham pratiti is important. All right, let's pause here. Namaste. Thank you. Om Shanti, Shanti, Shanti.
Pranam Swamiji.
Thank you, Swamiji.
Hari Om.
Thank you, Swami.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you all. Hari Om. Namaste. Namaste.
Thank you, Swamiji.
Thank you. Thank you, Swamiji.
Pranam Swamiji. Thank you, Swamiji.
Hari Om.